They called it the Rorschach test. They called it a mistake. For 22 years, Maren Brooks hid the jagged, ink-black scar on her shoulder beneath high collars and baggy hoodies. To the Blackwood Pack, she wasn't just an Omega. She was a genetic error, a joke. But on the night of the winter gala, when Jessica Carmichael tore Maren's dress in front of 300 people, nobody expected the Alpha King, Roman Valerius, to stop the music. They expected him to laugh. Instead, the most feared man in the hemisphere went pale. He didn't look at her face. He looked at the tattoo. And when he whispered the name Alexandra, the laughter didn't just stop. It died. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a ghost story. The rain in Orofino, Idaho, didn't wash things clean. It just made the dirt stick harder. Maren Brooks wiped the counter of the Den, the roadside diner that doubled as the low-ranking mess hall for the Blackwood Pack. The rag was grey, the water was lukewarm, and the smell of grease was permanently etched into her pores. "Hey, Scribble!" Maren didn't flinch. She kept scrubbing at a stubborn coffee stain on the laminate. She knew who it was. Jessica Carmichael, the Alpha's daughter. A girl with hair the colour of spun gold and a soul the colour of wet asphalt. "I'm talking to you, Omega," Jessica snapped, slamming her hand on the counter. Her perfectly manicured nails clicked against the surface. "We need 3 lattes and a raw steak for Kyle, and don't touch the meat with your bare hands. We don't need your bad luck infecting the warriors." Maren finally looked up. Her eyes were a muddy hazel, dull from lack of sleep. "It'll be 10 minutes, Jess." "It's future alpha female to you," Jessica corrected, leaning over the counter. She lowered her voice, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. She reached out and flicked the collar of Maren's uniform, a high-necked polo shirt buttoned to the chin, despite the humid heat of the diner. "Still hiding it? You know, my dad says that Mark is proof your mother slept with a rogue. That it's not a moon mark. It's a deformity, like a fungus." The boys behind Jessica, Kyle and a few other ranked warriors, snickered. They were massive, pumped full of testosterone and pack pride. To them, Maren was less than a ghost. She was the pack's punching bag. Underneath the thick cotton of her shirt, the skin on Maren's left shoulder burned. It always burned when she was angry. The mark wasn't a crescent moon. It wasn't a wolf head or a Celtic knot like the other wolves had. It was a chaotic, jagged sprawl of jet-black pigment that looked like shattered glass or a lightning strike gone wrong. It covered her shoulder blade and crept up the side of her neck. "It's just a birthmark, Jessica," Maren said quietly, turning to the espresso machine. "It's ugly," Jessica called out, loud enough for the whole diner to hear. "Just like you. You know King Roman is coming tonight, right? For the inspection?" Maren froze. The steam wand of the machine hissed. King Roman Valerius, the alpha of alphas, the CEO of Valerius Global. He wasn't just a wolf, he was a monster in an Armani suit. He ruled the entire North American Council. He hadn't visited the Idaho Territory in 15 years. "I'm working the kitchen tonight," Maren said, her back to them. "I won't be in the way." "Oh, you better not be," Jessica laughed. "If the king sees a mutant like you serving hors d'oeuvres, he might revoke our charter. Do us all a favor, Maren. Stay in the basement where the rats live." Maren made the coffees. She plated the raw steak. She didn't cry. She hadn't cried since she was 12, the day her grandmother died, and left her alone in this pack that hated her. But as she watched Jessica walk away, hip-checking the door open, Maren felt that familiar, heavy throb in her shoulder. The tattoo felt like it was moving, shifting under her skin. She looked at her reflection in the stainless steel of the pie fridge. a tired girl with messy brown hair and a uniform 2 sizes too big. "Just survive the night," she whispered to herself. "He'll be gone by morning." She was wrong. The Blackwood Pack house was a sprawling Victorian estate that had seen better days. The paint was peeling and the floorboards groaned, but tonight it was draped in velvet and fairy lights. Alpha Greg Miller, Jessica's father, was pacing the foyer. He was sweating. "Is the perimeter secure?" He barked at his beta, a man named Tom Halloway. "Yes, Alpha. Patrols are doubled." "But," Tom hesitated, "the king is bringing his own guard, the Obsidian unit." Alpha Greg went pale. The Obsidian unit weren't just bodyguards, they were executioners. They didn't carry tranquilizers. They carried silver-tipped rounds and blades forged from cold iron. "Why?" Greg hissed. "We've paid our tithes. Our numbers are good." "Rumor is," Tom lowered his voice, "he's looking for someone." In the kitchen, Maren was elbow-deep in soapy water. The staff was in a frenzy. The head chef, a kind but stressed human woman named Mrs. Higgins, was shouting orders. "Maren, we're short a server for the VIP section. Sarah passed out from anxiety." "No," Maren said immediately, drying her hands. "Mrs. Higgins, you know I can't. Alpha Greg gave strict orders. I am not to be seen." "Greg isn't here, and I need hands." Mrs. Higgins shoved a tray of champagne flutes at her. "Put on the formal vest. Button it high. Keep your head down. Just drop the drinks and get out. Please, Maren." "For me?" Maren looked at the older woman. Mrs. Higgins was the only person who snuck her extra rolls at dinner. Maren sighed. "Fine." She changed into the formal server wear, black slacks, a crisp white shirt, and a black vest. She buttoned the collar tight, ensuring the jagged black lines of her tattoo were completely hidden. She took a deep breath and pushed through the swinging doors into the ballroom. The air changed instantly. It smelled of expensive cologne, ozone, and fear. The room was silent. At the top of the grand staircase stood Roman Valerius. He was taller than the photos, maybe 6'5", built like a linebacker but moving with the grace of a panther. He wore a tuxedo that cost more than Maren's entire life earnings. His hair was black, swept back, and his eyes were the color of freezing ice. He didn't walk down the stairs, he descended like a god, checking on his subjects. Flanking him were 4 men in tactical gear, looking out of place among the ball gowns, but utterly terrifying. Maren felt a jolt of electricity hit her chest. It was so strong she almost dropped the tray. "Mate!" The word screamed in her mind. Her wolf, usually dormant and weak, howled inside her ribcage. No, she thought, panic rising in her throat. No, absolutely not. Not him. Anyone but him. King Roman reached the bottom of the stairs. Alpha Greg rushed forward, bowing low. "Your Majesty, welcome to Blackwood." Roman didn't bow back. He didn't even shake Greg's hand. He just looked around the room, his nose flaring slightly. He was scenting the air. "Your report said the pack is stable, Gregory," Roman said. His voice was a deep baritone that vibrated through the floorboards. "Yet the air here smells of rot," Greg stammered. "Rot?" "No, my king, we are thriving." "We shall see." Roman began to walk through the crowd. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. He moved with predatory focus. Maren, terrified, backed into the shadows near the beverage station. "He can't smell me," she prayed. "I'm an Omega. My scent is faint. Plus I smell like dish soap." She watched him. He was terrifyingly beautiful. A scar ran through his left eyebrow, giving him a perpetually dangerous look. He stopped to speak to the beta, ignoring Jessica, who was posing provocatively near the chocolate fountain. "Water," a voice said beside Maren. She jumped. One of the Obsidian guards was standing there. "Water," For the king." "Oh, right away," Maren stammered. She poured a glass of ice water, her hands shaking. She placed it on a small silver platter. "Take it to him," the guard ordered. "I can't," Maren whispered. "I'm not supposed to. Do you want to disobey a direct order from the royal guard?" The man's hand went to his belt. Maren swallowed hard. She took the tray. She walked toward Roman Valerius. Every step felt like walking through molasses. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Don't look at him. Don't look at him." She reached the circle of elites surrounding the king. Alpha Greg was bragging about their hunting territory. "Excuse me," Maren whispered, extending the tray. Roman stopped talking. He turned slowly. He looked at the water. Then his gaze traveled up her arm, over the concealed shoulder, to her face. For a second, the world stopped. Roman's icy eyes locked onto her hazel ones. His pupils dilated. A low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound so primal that Alpha Greg actually took a step back. Roman's hand reached out, not for the water, but toward her. "Who is this?" Roman asked, his voice rough. "Just a server, my king." Jessica's shrill voice cut in. She appeared out of nowhere, shoving herself between Maren and Roman. "She's nobody, a runt. Maren, get out of here before you embarrass us." Jessica grabbed Maren's arm, the left arm. She dug her sharp fingernails into the fabric, right over the tattoo. "Ow!" Maren gasped, pulling back. "Clumsy oaf!" Jessica shrieked. She accidentally tripped Maren. Maren fell forward. The tray flew. Ice water splashed all over the front of King Roman's tuxedo. The entire ballroom gasped. The silence was deafening. Maren scrambled to her knees, horrified. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." She grabbed a napkin and reached out to dab his jacket, but Alpha Greg roared. "Don't touch him, you filth!" Greg grabbed Maren by the back of her vest and hauled her up. "Get her out of here. Lock her in the cells." "Wait," Jessica said, a malicious glint in her eye. "Look at her shirt." The water hadn't just hit Roman. It had soaked Maren, too. The white cotton of her shirt was now translucent, and beneath the wet fabric, the black ink was clearly visible, the jagged, ugly, sprawling mark. "Look, Your Majesty," Jessica laughed, pointing. "She's marked by the devil. That's what we call it. The ugly stain for an ugly girl." Jessica reached out and, with a violent yank, ripped the wet fabric of Maren's shirt from the collar down to the shoulder. The fabric tore with a loud rip. Maren gasped, covering her chest, but her left shoulder was exposed. The tattoo was laid bare under the crystal chandeliers. It was stark black against her pale skin. It looked like a map of veins, or a shattered star, twisting and turning in a way that hurt the eyes to look at. The crowd snickered. "Look at that," someone whispered. "It looks like a burn." "Disgusting," Jessica smirked, waiting for the king's disgust. "See, she's a mutant." Roman Valerius didn't move. He didn't wipe the water from his suit. He was staring at the tattoo. His face had gone completely white. He took a step forward, his boots crunching on the broken glass. "Where?" Roman's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried to the back of the room. "Where did you get that mark?" Maren was trembling, tears streaming down her face. "I was born with it. Please, just let me go." Roman fell to his knees. The room froze. The Alpha King, the man who conquered the West Coast, was on his knees in a puddle of water and glass right in front of the Omega waitress. He reached out a trembling hand. He didn't touch her skin. He traced the air above the black ink. "It's not a stain," Roman whispered, looking up at her with an expression of shattered awe. "It's the map." Alpha Greg frowned. "The map? My king, she's just a waitress. Her mother was a whore." Roman's head snapped toward Greg. The look on his face was pure, unadulterated murder. "Speak of her again, Gregory, and I will rip your tongue out of your head." Greg snapped his mouth shut. Roman turned back to Maren. He looked at the tattoo, then into her eyes. "You don't know who you are, do you?" Roman asked softly. Maren shook her head. I'm just Maren." "No." Roman stood up, towering over her. He turned to the room, his voice booming like thunder. "This is not a deformity. This mark is the sigil of the first line." He grabbed Maren's hand and raised it high. "This is the crest of the Valerius bloodline that was lost 20 years ago. This is not a waitress." Roman looked at Jessica, whose smirk had fallen off her face. "This," Roman declared, "is my betrothed, and by the laws of the ancients, she is your queen." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. Then, Maren did the only thing she could think of. She fainted. Maren woke up in silk. It was the first thing she noticed, the cool, slippery texture against her skin. She wasn't on her lumpy mattress in the diner's basement. She was in a bed the size of a small car, surrounded by pillows that smelled of lavender and rain. She sat up, gasping. "Easy." The voice came from the corner of the room. Maren whipped her head around. Roman was sitting in a velvet armchair. He had changed out of the wet tuxedo into a dark grey sweater and tactical pants. He held a tumbler of amber liquid, but he wasn't drinking. He was watching her. "Where am I?" Maren asked, pulling the duvet up to her chin. "The penthouse suite of the Blackwood Hotel," Roman said. "I couldn't leave you in that house. Not with those people." "I have to go back," Maren said, swinging her legs out of bed. "My shift starts at 6. Alpha Greg will dock my pay if—" "Alpha Greg is currently in a holding cell," Roman said calmly. Maren froze. "What?" "He allowed a royal heir to be treated like a slave," Roman said, his voice hardening. "He is lucky I didn't execute him on the spot. I'm waiting for you to decide his fate." "Me?" Maren laughed nervously. "I'm nobody. You made a mistake back there. The heat, the stress. You said some crazy things." Roman set the glass down. He stood up and walked toward the bed. Maren shrank back, but he stopped a respectful distance away. "Show me the mark, Maren." "No." "Please." Slowly, Maren lowered the duvet, exposing her left shoulder. The morning light hit the jagged black scar. Roman looked at it with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Do you know the history of our people, Maren?" "We come from wolves," she recited the school lesson. "We come from stars," Roman corrected. "The first pack wasn't just wolves. They were guardians. The royal line, my line, we carry the blood of the ancients. But 20 years ago, my uncle tried to seize the throne. He killed my parents. He tried to kill me." He took a step closer. "My baby sister. She was smuggled out by a nursemaid. We thought she died in the crossing." Maren's heart stopped. "Sister? You think I'm your sister?" "No." Roman shook his head. "My sister had a mark. Yes, but it was a crescent. The mark you have," he pointed to the jagged map-like sprawl, "that is a soul bond mark. It appears only when a royal finds their destined equal. But it was twisted." He reached out and finally touched her skin. His fingers were hot. "It's twisted because it was sealed. Someone used dark magic to hide you, to hide your scent from me. That's why I couldn't find you until I saw it." "Hide me from who?" "From the people who killed my parents," Roman said grimly. "And from the people who want to stop the prophecy." "What prophecy?" Roman looked her in the eye. that the king will find the lost queen, and together they will unite the fractured packs. Maren, that ink on your shoulder isn't a scribble, it's a key. And everyone in this town who laughed at it, they were laughing at a weapon they didn't understand. Suddenly, the door burst open. It wasn't a maid. It was Liam, Maren's only friend from the diner. But he wasn't wearing his apron. He was wearing tactical gear, and he had a gun pointed at Roman's head. "Get away from her!" Liam shouted. Roman didn't even flinch. He looked at Liam with boredom. "Put the toy away, pup." "Maren, get behind me!" Liam yelled. "He's lying to you. He's not here to save you. That tattoo marks you as a sacrifice, not a queen." Maren looked between them. The king who claimed she was royalty, and the best friend who claimed she was a victim. "Liam, what are you talking about?" Maren asked. "The Valerius curse," Liam spat, his eyes wild. "He needs to kill the girl with the void mark to gain ultimate power. That's what that tattoo is, Maren. It's the void, and he's going to drain you dry." Roman growled, his eyes flashing gold. "Lies." "Is it?" Liam challenged. "Ask him why his last 3 fiancées disappeared, Maren. Ask him." Maren looked at Roman. "Is that true?" Roman's jaw tightened. He didn't answer immediately. That was all the answer Maren needed. She grabbed the heavy lamp from the bedside table and smashed it against the window. "Run!" Liam shouted. Glass shattered outwards into the cold Idaho morning. Maren didn't think. She just jumped. She was an Omega, weak, malnourished, untrained. But fear is a potent drug. She landed badly on the second-story fire escape, the metal grating tearing through her silk pajama pants, slicing her knee. Pain shot up her leg, white-hot and blinding. "Move, Maren!" Liam vaulted out behind her, landing with a heavy thud. He grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. "They'll be on us in seconds." They scrambled down the rusted ladder into the back alley. The air was sharp with the smell of dumpster sludge and pine resin. Behind them, alarms began to blare from the hotel. "My car is 3 blocks over," Liam panted, pulling her into a run. Maren limped heavily, blood trickling down her shin, staining the expensive silk. "Liam, wait!" Maren gasped, her lungs burning. "Why did you have a gun? You're a fry cook." "I've been watching you, Maren. Protecting you from them," Liam said, his eyes darting wildly at every shadow. "The Blackwood pack are sheep, but Roman, he's a butcher. He feeds on omegas to strengthen his alpha blood. That's why he's the king." It sounded insane. Yet, the terror on Roman's face when he saw the mark, was it awe or was it hunger? They reached a beat-up Honda Civic parked behind a laundromat. Liam shoved her into the passenger seat. He fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking violently. "Vroom!" A low, guttural roar echoed down the alleyway. It wasn't a car engine. It was a wolf, a very large wolf. Maren looked into the rearview mirror. Standing at the entrance of the alley was a creature of nightmare. A massive black wolf, easily the size of a small horse, with eyes like burning gold. "Roman!" "Drive!" Maren screamed. Liam slammed the accelerator. The tires squealed, burning rubber as they shot out of the alley onto the main road. The chase was on. They tore through the sleepy town of Orofino at 80 miles an hour. Liam was driving like a maniac, blowing through stop signs, swerving around early morning logging trucks. "He's gaining!" Liam yelled, checking the mirror. The black wolf was keeping pace with the car, its muscles coiling and releasing like fluid steel. Behind the wolf, 2 black SUVs, the Obsidian Guard, were closing the distance, their grille lights flashing silent red and blue. "We have to ditch the car," Liam said, veering sharply off the main road onto a gravel logging trail that led straight up the mountain. The scent markers in the deep woods will confuse them. It's old magic territory. The Civic bounced violently over potholes. Maren's head slammed against the window. "Liam, slow down! You're going to kill us!" "Better dead than drained by that monster!" The car hit a massive root. The axle snapped with a sickening crack. The vehicle spun wildly, crashing into a ditch and stalling out. Steam hissed from the radiator. Silence fell over the forest, heavy and oppressive. "Out!" Liam commanded, kicking his door open. He grabbed a duffel bag from the back seat. He had packed. When? And hauled Maren out of the wreckage. "We run on foot, up the ridge. There are caves." Maren couldn't run. Her knee was throbbing, swollen to the size of a grapefruit. "Liam, I can't. Leave me." "No!" He grabbed her face, his intensity frightening. "You are too important, Maren. You have no idea what you are." He slung her arm over his shoulder, half carrying her as they plunged into the dense, ancient forest. The trees here were enormous, blocking out the sun. The air grew colder, smelling of damp earth and something metallic. They ran for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 20 minutes. Every step was agony for Maren. The tattoo on her shoulder was searing hot now, pulsing in time with her heartbeat, as if it was trying to burn its way out of her skin. "Nearly there," Liam wheezed. Ahead, a limestone cliff face rose out of the pines, riddled with dark cave entrances. Snap! A twig broke nearby. Liam froze. He dropped Maren and pulled his gun, aiming into the dense underbrush. "Show yourself." Silence. Then, from the shadows, a man stepped out. It wasn't Roman. It was one of the Obsidian guards. He was huge, dressed in tactical black, his face obscured by a helmet and visor. He held no gun, only a long, shimmering blade made of what looked like black glass. "Target acquired," the guard said, his voice distorted mechanically. "Secure the asset. Neutralize the rogue." "You won't have her!" Liam screamed. He opened fire. Bang! 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 The bullets hit the guard's chest armor and flattened uselessly. The guard didn't even flinch. He just kept walking forward. Liam panicked. He turned to Maren, his eyes wide with a desperate, terrifying look. "I'm sorry, Maren," Liam whispered. "If I can't take you to the master, I have to finish the ritual here." Liam turned the gun away from the guard and pointed it directly at Maren's heart. Time dilated. Maren stared down the barrel of the cheap handgun held by the boy who used to sneak her onion rings. "Liam?" she whispered, betrayal icing her veins faster than the mountain air. "What are you doing?" "The void must be opened," Liam chanted, his eyes glazed over, as if he were reciting something he'd been brainwashed to say. "Blood for the bloodless god." His finger tightened on the trigger. "Roar!" A massive black blur erupted from the tree line. The Alpha King in his wolf form hit Liam with the force of a freight train. Liam flew backward, smashing against a pine tree. The gun flew from his hand, skittering across the rocky ground near Maren's feet. Roman didn't shift back immediately. The giant wolf stood over Maren, hackles raised, teeth bared in a snarl that vibrated through the ground. He was shielding her from Liam, from the guard, from the whole world. The Obsidian guard stopped advancing. He sheathed his sword and bowed his head fiercely. "My king!" The black wolf turned his massive head toward Maren. His golden eyes were swirling with rage, but when they landed on her, they softened instantly to pools of molten honey. He whined low in his throat, nudging her injured knee with his wet nose. He stepped back and shuddered violently. Bones cracked and shifted. In seconds, Roman Valerius stood there, naked, glorious, and utterly lethal. He didn't care about his nudity. He dropped to his knees in the dirt in front of Maren. "Did he hurt you?" His voice was a wreck, gravel and smoke. His large hands hovered over her leg, afraid to cause more pain. Maren was in shock. She looked from Roman to the unconscious Liam, to the gun on the ground. He was going to shoot me, Maren stammered. He said, "The void." Roman's face hardened into a mask of terrifying fury. He stood up and walked over to where Liam was groaning, trying to sit up. Roman grabbed Liam by the throat and lifted him off the ground with one hand. "Who sent you?" Roman growled. "Speak, pup, or I will tear your throat out right here." Liam spat blood in Roman's face. "The rogue king. Malakar. He knows the sigil has been found. You're too late, Valerius. The armies are marching." Roman threw Liam to the guard. "Balthazar, shackle him. Cold iron. If he tries to shift, break his legs. He is to be interrogated by me personally." "Yes, sire." The guard dragged Liam away toward the cave entrance. Roman turned back to Maren. The sky above them darkened rapidly. Heavy grey clouds rolled in over the mountain peaks. Thunder cracked, shaking the ground beneath them. "A storm is coming." "A bad one," Roman said, looking up. "We cannot go back down the mountain yet. We have to take shelter in the caves." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Maren said, trying to scoot backward, wincing as her knee screamed in protest. "Liam said you kill your fiancés. He said the mark is a curse." Roman looked devastated. The most powerful man on the continent looked like a kicked puppy. "Liam is a rogue sympathizer, Maren. He was sent here years ago as a sleeper agent to watch for the mark to emerge. Malakar, he's the one who wants to sacrifice you. He believes your blood can grant him immortality." Roman reached out slowly. "My fiancés didn't disappear because of me. They were assassinated by Malakar's agents to prevent me from ever finding a true queen and solidifying my rule. I have been alone in a war for 20 years, Maren." Maren searched his eyes. They were terrifyingly honest. The pull in her chest, the mate bond, was urging her to trust him. Her wolf inside was scratching to get to him. Rain began to fall, big fat drops that turned instantly to sleet. "Please," Roman held out his hand, "let me get you out of the cold. If you want to leave me after the storm, I will give you a car and enough money to disappear forever. I swear it on my alpha blood. But right now, let me save you." Maren looked at her ruined knee. She looked at the freezing rain. She looked at his hand. She took it. He didn't just help her up. He scooped her into his arms bridal style, as if she weighed nothing. The heat coming off his bare chest was intoxicating. He carried her into the deepest, driest cave. Balthazar had already started a small, smokeless fire in the corner, Liam bound and gagged nearby. Roman set her down on a bed of dry moss near the fire. The storm outside unleashed its full fury, howling past the cave mouth. They were trapped. Roman grabbed a first aid kit from the duffel bag Liam had dropped. He knelt between her legs, his focus entirely on her injury. "This is going to sting," he murmured, pouring antiseptic over the gash. Maren hissed, gripping his shoulders reflexively. His skin was smooth, hard muscle over bone. He worked with surprising gentleness, stitching the worst of the cut and wrapping it tightly. His hands were steady, but she could feel the tremors running through his body. He was restraining himself. The proximity, the scent of her fear and her blood, it was driving his alpha instincts haywire. When he was finished, he sat back on his heels, staring at the tattoo on her shoulder, now visible through her torn shirt. The tattoo was glowing. A faint, pulsing obsidian light emanated from the jagged lines. "It likes being near me," Roman whispered, mesmerized. "It knows its other half is here." "What is it, Roman?" "The truth." Roman took a deep breath. "The Valerius line. We were the original rulers, the first wolves. Our power didn't just come from the moon, it came from the earth itself. To ensure that power never became corrupted, The ancients created a fail-safe. He pointed to her shoulder. The queen's sigil and the king's anchor. Roman turned his back to her. Across his massive shoulders was a tattoo etched in white ink. It was a series of rigid, geometric bars like a cage. My mark is the anchor. It represents control, duty, restriction. Without a queen, I am just brute force. I am unstable. That's why the council fears me. That's why I have to rule with an iron fist. He turned back to face her, his eyes burning with intensity. But your mark, the jagged lines, it's raw chaos, it's pure creation and destruction. It's the magic that's been missing from our world. He reached out and placed his palm flat over her tattoo. The sensation was indescribable. It wasn't pain. It was like sticking a fork into an electrical socket. But instead of dying, Maren felt alive for the first time in her life. A wave of energy blasted outward from them, causing the fire to flare up and the cave walls to hum. When the sigil and the anchor meet, Roman whispered, leaning closer, his forehead resting against hers. They balance each other. You aren't a sacrifice, Maren. You are my stabilizer. You are the only thing that can make me whole. His breath smelled of rain and mint. His lips were inches from hers. The mate bond was screaming at her to close the gap, to claim the king who was kneeling at her feet. The rogues laughed at you, Roman murmured, his thumb tracing her jawline, because they feared what you would become when I found you, and they were right to fear. Maren's heart hammered. The scared little Omega girl was dying inside her. Something else was waking up. Something angry. Something powerful. She leaned in, closing the final inch, and pressed her lips against his. The kiss was not gentle. It was a collision of 20 years of loneliness and a lifetime of suppression. Roman growled into her mouth, a low, possessive vibration that traveled straight to Maren's core. His hands, previously so careful, gripped her waist with desperate strength, pulling her against his bare chest. Maren met his intensity. She tangled her hands in his thick, black hair, pulling him closer. The heat between them was volcanic. The tattoo on her shoulder felt like it was melting into her skin, the energy coiling down her spine, knitting her broken body back together at accelerated speed. Her knee stopped throbbing. The bruises on her arms faded. Roman broke the kiss, gasping for air, his forehead resting against hers. His golden eyes were wild. Mine. You are mine, Maren. Say it. I'm yours, she breathed, realizing it was the truest thing she'd ever said. He kissed her again, deeper this time, sealing the bond. It wasn't the full mating ceremony that required the full moon and the pack witnesses, but it was a promise forged in blood and fire. They stayed like that for hours while the storm raged outside, holding each other, the king of alphas serving as a human heater for the girl who used to sleep in a basement. By morning, the storm had broken. Sunlight sliced through the cave entrance, illuminating dust motes in the cold air. Maren woke up wrapped in Roman's arms. He was awake, watching her. He looked different than the night before, less rigid. The lines of constant tension around his eyes had smoothed out. "How is the knee?" he asked softly. Maren sat up and tested it. She could bend it fully. Only a faint pink line remained where a deep gash had been hours ago. "It's healed. That's impossible. I'm an Omega. We heal slowly." "You were never an Omega, Maren," Roman said, sitting up. His presence filled the small space. "Your power was just dormant, suppressed by the same dark magic that hid your scent. The bond broke the seal. You will find you are faster now, stronger." Balthazar the guard entered the cave, saluting smartly. He ignored the fact that his king was naked from the waist up with a woman. "Sire, the transport is secured at the base of the mountain. The area is clear for now, but chatter on the rogue frequencies is spiking. They know we have her." Roman stood up, his expression shifting instantly from lover to warlord. He pulled on his tattered sweater. "We have to move," Roman said, extending a hand to Maren. "We need to get you to the capital, to the Iron Citadel. It's the only place safe enough." Maren stood up without assistance. She felt tall. She looked down at her torn diner uniform, the symbol of her oppression. "I need clothes," she said. Her voice was steadier than it had been yesterday. Roman nodded to Balthazar, who produced a spare tactical jacket from a pack. It was massive on her, smelling of gun oil and alpha male, but it was warm. They descended the mountain in silence. Roman kept Maren nestled between himself and Balthazar. He was constantly scanning the tree line, his body a coiled spring. When they reached the bottom, a sleek, armored helicopter sat in a clearing, its rotors already turning slow circles. "Your chariot, my queen," Roman said, shouting over the engine noise. As she climbed into the leather seat of the helicopter, Maren looked back toward the town of Orofino, hidden by the trees. She thought of Jessica, who had ripped her shirt, of Alpha Gregg, who had called her mother a were, of all the people who had laughed at the ugly black mark. "What happens to Blackwood?" Maren asked, as Roman buckled her in. Roman looked out the window as the helicopter lifted off. "I sent a second unit of the Obsidian Guard this morning. Alpha Gregg has been formally deposed for treason against the Crown. The pack will be dissolved, its members absorbed into neighboring territories. Blackwood is no more." Maren felt a chill. He destroyed her entire world with a phone call. "And Jessica?" Maren asked. "She is currently working in the scullery of the Western Barracks," Roman said coldly, "peeling potatoes for 300 unaccompanied soldiers. I thought it fitting." Maren didn't feel pity. She just felt a strange sense of closure. The helicopter soared over the Idaho wilderness, heading towards the coast. Roman took her hand, intertwining his large fingers with hers. "Maren," he said, his voice serious, "I need you to understand what happens when we land. By bringing you to the Citadel, by claiming you as the first queen, I have declared war on the rogue coalition. Malachar will throw everything he has at us to kill you before the coronation." He squeezed her hand. "It is not an easy life. You will be hunted. You will be tested. You will have to learn to fight, to rule. If you want out, tell me now. I will turn this chopper around and hide you in Europe." Maren looked at the man beside her, the monster they all feared, the man who had knelt in broken glass for her. She looked down at her shoulder. The tattoo wasn't ugly anymore. It was a map to a future she never dreamed she could have. The scared girl was gone. Maren looked the Alpha King in the eye. "I'm done hiding, Roman. Let them come. We'll burn them all." Roman smiled. It was a terrifying, beautiful smile. "That's my queen." The Iron Citadel did not look like a home. It looked like a weapon aimed at the sky. Built into the jagged cliffs of the Pacific coastline, the Valerius ancestral seat was a fortress of black stone and reinforced steel. Waves crashed violently against its base, sending spray hundreds of feet into the air. It was cold, imposing, and impregnable. Or so they thought. As the helicopter descended onto the wind-battered landing pad, Maren felt the weight of what was coming. She wasn't just walking into a castle. She was walking into a snake pit. "Chin up," Roman murmured, unbuckling her harness. "Do not let them see you shiver. To the High Council, fear is a scent marker for prey." "I'm not shivering because I'm cold," Maren replied, gripping the tactical jacket tighter around herself. I'm shivering because I'm about to meet the people who rule the world. They don't rule, Roman corrected, his eyes darkening. They advise. I rule. And today, you rule beside me. They were met on the tarmac, not by servants, but by 24 soldiers of the Obsidian Guard, standing in perfect formation. At the front stood a tall, severe woman, with silver hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She wore robes of deep crimson. High Priestess Kaya, Roman acknowledged, stepping out of the chopper and helping Maren down. Your Majesty. Kaya bowed slightly, her eyes flicking instantly to Maren. Her gaze was dissecting. And this is the girl. This is the Queen, Roman growled. The warning in his voice was clear. Disrespect her, and die. That remains to be seen, Kaya said coolly. The council is assembled in the Hall of Judgment. They demand proof. The mark on her skin could be ink. It could be a trick of the rogue witches. If she is truly the first line, she must pass the trial of the Moonstone. Maren stepped forward. I'll do it. Roman grabbed her arm gently. Maren, no. The trial is ancient magic. It tests the purity of the soul and the blood. If your body cannot handle the surge of energy, it will stop your heart. You said I'm the stabilizer, Maren said, looking up at him. You said I'm the key. If that's true, I won't die. And if I don't do this, they will never accept me. I won't let you start a civil war for me, Roman. I want to end the war. Roman looked at her, pride warring with terror in his eyes. Finally, he nodded. Then we walk together. The Hall of Judgment was a cavernous room, lit only by torchlight. 12 statues of giant wolves lined the walls. At the far end sat the Council of 7, ancient werewolves who oversaw the laws of their kind. In the center of the room stood a pedestal holding a jagged, glowing white stone. The Moonstone. Step forward, Omega. Elder Thorn, the head of the council, barked. He was a withered man with eyes like flint. You claim to carry the lost blood. Prove it. Touch the stone. If you are a fraud, it will burn the flesh from your bones. If you are true, the stone will sing. The room was silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Maren walked toward the pedestal. Her footsteps echoed on the obsidian floor. She could feel the heat radiating from the stone. It felt alive. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. She thought of the diner. She thought of the rain. She thought of the years she spent believing she was nothing. I am not nothing, she thought. I am the storm. Maren slammed her hand down onto the moonstone. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a scream tore from her throat. Pain, absolute and blinding, shot up her arm. It felt like sticking her hand into the core of a sun. The black tattoo on her shoulder began to writhe, the ink spreading like living veins down her arm to meet the stone. "She's burning!" Kaya shouted. "Pull her off!" "No!" Roman roared, stepping forward but holding himself back. "Look!" The white light of the stone was turning black. It wasn't burning her flesh. It was being absorbed. Maren's eyes rolled back in her head. Her feet lifted off the ground. A vortex of wind whipped through the hall, extinguishing the torches. The only light came from Maren. The jagged mark on her shoulder erupted with violet energy, casting long, terrified shadows against the walls. "It is not possible," Elder Thorn whispered, standing up in horror. "That is not just the blood of the first. That is the void." Maren gasped, dropping back to the floor. The stone shattered into dust. She stood there, panting. Her eyes were no longer hazel. They were violet, glowing with a power that made the hair on the necks of the council members stand up. "Is that proof enough?" Maren asked, her voice echoing, as if two people were speaking at once. The council fell to their knees. Even Thorn. "Hail the Queen!" Thorn rasped. Roman walked toward her, relief washing over his face. He reached out to touch her. "Maren, you did it!" Boom! The massive iron doors of the hall blew inward. Debris flew everywhere. Guards were thrown like rag dolls. Smoke filled the chamber. Through the haze, a slow, mocking clap echoed. "Bravo!" a deep voice sneered. Truly a performance for the ages. Walking through the smoke was a man who looked like a twisted reflection of Roman. He was handsome, but his skin was grey, and his eyes were completely black. No whites, just void. "Malakar," Roman snarled, shifting partially, his claws extending. "Hello, nephew." Malakar smiled, revealing sharpened teeth. Behind him poured hundreds of rogue soldiers, swarming into the citadel like cockroaches. "I see you found my battery." He pointed a claw at Maren. "I'll be taking that now." The Hall of Judgment descended into chaos. "Protect the Queen!" Roman roared. The Obsidian Guard clashed with the rogue invaders. The sound of tearing metal and snarling wolves filled the air. It was a massacre. The rogues were enhanced, juiced up on dark magic, faster and stronger than normal wolves. Malakar didn't look at the guards. He walked straight toward Roman. "You've sat on my throne long enough, boy." Malakar spat. They collided with a force that cracked the stone floor. Roman was powerful, the alpha of alphas. But Malakar was something else. He was ancient, and he used magic. He summoned tendrils of shadow that whipped around Roman's limbs, binding him. "Roman!" Maren screamed. She tried to run to him, but 3 rogue wolves circled her. "Stay back, little girl," one of them hissed. "The boss wants you alive, but he didn't say we couldn't have a taste." Maren backed up against the shattered pedestal. She didn't have combat training. She didn't know how to fight. "Use it," a voice whispered in her head. "Use the map." The rogue lunged. Maren threw up her hand instinctively. She didn't punch. She pushed with her mind. A blast of violet energy erupted from her palm. It hit the rogue wolf in midair and disintegrated him. He didn't even bleed. He just turned to ash. The other 2 rogues froze. Maren stared at her hand. The tattoo was pulsing violently, syncing with her heartbeat. "I am the weapon," she realized. Across the room, Roman was losing. Malakar had him pinned against the wall, a hand wrapped around Roman's throat, draining his energy. Roman's skin was turning grey. "Weak," Malakar laughed. "Just like your father. You rely on muscle. I rely on the abyss. Get off him." Malakar turned just in time to see Maren flying across the room, literally flying, propelled by the energy radiating from her skin. She hit Malakar like a meteor. The rogue king was thrown across the hall, smashing through a stone pillar. He stood up, shaking off the dust, looking at Maren with hungry delight. "Yes," Malakar hissed. "There it is, the raw power. Imagine what we could do together. Child, we could remake this world. Why save these weaklings? They treated you like garbage for 20 years. Join me. Kill him and take your revenge." Maren landed beside Roman. She helped him stand. Roman was weak, coughing up blood, but he placed a hand on her waist. "Maren," Roman wheezed. "Combine them." "What?" "The sigil and the anchor," Roman said, his eyes locking on hers. "My structure, your power. We have to complete the bond, now. Here, in the middle of a war. Trust me." Malakar roared and charged, summoning a spear of pure darkness. Roman grabbed Maren's hand and placed it over his heart, right over his own white tattoo. "I, Roman Valerius, surrender my soul to you," he commanded. "I, Maren Brooks, accept it," she cried out. The world went white. When the light faded, they weren't just 2 people standing side by side. They were a circuit. Maren felt Roman's tactical knowledge flood her mind. She saw the room not as a frightened girl, but as a general. She saw the weak points, she saw the angles, and Roman felt her power. His muscles swelled with violet energy. His wounds closed instantly. They moved as one. Malachar threw the shadow spear. Maren caught it in midair and crushed it into sparks. Roman lunged, moving faster than the eye could follow, slashing Malachar across the chest. It was a dance of death. Maren blasted back the rogue army with waves of force, clearing a path for Roman to deliver the blows. They were perfectly synchronized, a whirlwind of violet light and black claws. Malachar realized too late that he had made a mistake. He wasn't fighting a king and a queen. He was fighting a god. "No!" Malachar screamed as Maren bound him with chains of light. "I am the rightful king!" "You are a ghost," Maren said, her voice echoing with the power of the ancients. "And it's time to be exorcised." Roman stepped forward, his claws glowing with Maren's energy. "For my parents," Roman said. He drove his hand into Malachar's chest. There was a shockwave of silence. Malachar gasped, his black eyes widening. Then he dissolved into smoke, screaming as the void dragged him back to the hell he crawled out of. The rogue army, seeing their master destroyed, dropped their weapons and fled. Silence fell over the hall of judgment. Roman collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The violet light faded from Maren's skin, leaving her tired, bruised, but alive. She dropped down beside him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "We're alive." Roman buried his face in her hair. "We're alive." The High Council, the Obsidian Guard, and the survivors slowly gathered around them. Elder Thorn stepped forward, looking at the destruction, and then at the couple holding each other in the center of it. Thorn bowed low, his forehead touching the floor. "Long live the king," Thorn said. "Long live the queen." 1 month later. The balcony of the Iron Citadel overlooked a calm ocean. The repairs were almost finished. The rogue cells had been hunted down. The world was quiet. Maren leaned against the railing, wearing a simple white dress. Her tattoo was visible, no longer hidden. It was a mark of pride now, the symbol of the Savior. Roman stepped up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. He kissed the spot on her shoulder where the ink was darkest. "They're waiting for us," Roman said. "The coronation starts in 10 minutes. "I'm nervous," Maren admitted. "Don't be." Roman turned her around. He looked happy. Truly happy. "You defeated a demon lord. You can handle a crown." "It's not the crown," Maren smiled. "It's the dancing. I'm terrible at dancing." Roman laughed, a deep, rich sound that made her heart flutter. "Then I'll lead." "By the way," Maren said, adjusting his tie, "I got a letter from the Western Barracks today." "Oh?" "Jessica Carmichael. She wants to know if she can be transferred to the laundry duty. Apparently, peeling potatoes is ruining her manicure." Roman raised an eyebrow. "And what did the Queen decide?" Maren smirked. "I told her she can switch to stable cleaning duty." Roman grinned and kissed her. "That's my girl. Merciless." "Come on, Alpha." Maren pulled away, grabbing his hand. "Let's go rule the world." They walked back into the citadel, hand in hand, ready to face a future that belonged entirely to them. The girl with the ugly tattoo was gone. The Queen had risen, and this time nobody was laughing. And that is the story of Maren and the Alpha King. From a rejected outcast scrubbing floors to the most powerful queen in history, Maren proved that sometimes the things the world calls flaws are actually our greatest strengths. I hope you enjoyed this journey of revenge, magic, and romance. If you did, please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button right now. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. What do you think happened to Liam? Did he deserve forgiveness, or should he have stayed in the dungeon? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.